All right, Brent Corsi at TopVelocity.net. Going to do a pitch analysis here. Scott, pair him up with David Aardsma. David Aardsma has a very unique arm path, as far as out of the glove. But once we go into hip to shoulder separation, it's very, very specific or similar to most high velocity pitchers. So, all right, so we'll take both into their leg lifts. Scott's already there. Initially I like to see momentum in a position to generate momentum, which means your hips are well inside your drive leg. So if we see David here, we can see his hips are well inside the drive leg. What is it? The initial movements of momentum come from a falling motion. Of course, we want to close the hips off, close the shoulders off to prepare for hip to shoulder separation, front foot strike. But the initial movement is trying to get as much gravity going forward through you falling through your hips into your loaded position. You can see David moves into his loaded position just before his leg drive, and so does Scott here. Okay, so Scott, well, with David here, he was always a knee slammer, meaning he would just continuing to take the hips forward and push the knee through and not engage the lower leg. After working with me this past off season, we started to engage the lower leg because he had so much adductor tears, which typically would be a result of just knee slamming. If we watch here with Scott, Scott is very rotational, so we can get a good sense of the drive leg styles that I've talked about before. If you want to learn more about the drive leg styles, search on YouTube 3X drive leg styles. But there's three of them. There's triple extension, knee slamming, and rotational. You can see here Scott is a rotator. So we can see as Scott, when you're the point, you don't really drive. You take the back knee into internal rotation, which is fine, but you don't initiate much force production through extension. Okay, if we watch David here, you're going to see the old knee slamming movement of the knee wanting to come down, but he protects the adductor by then engaging the calf or the ankle extension before he gets into front foot strike. So you can see he's already pushing. He's yet to land, and then he lands here, and we can see the ankle through. Normally, previously to this, his foot would have still been on the rubber and actually on the side of his foot. Okay. So this point here, you can see David is pushed out into a good extension, which would be triple extension at front foot strike, which has pushed him in a farther stride length. He also is going to have more force production going into front foot strike, and if you can separate that well, that should convert more power up the kinetic chain. Besides Scott here, just rotating into front foot, not going to generate as much force production. You'll still be able to separate your hips because you're into more rotation. You're being rotational, so that means your hips will be more rotational. So you can still get a lot of hip to shoulder separation, but typically what I find with guys who don't generate a lot of back leg force production and then can't recover with front leg force production is their trunk just follows the rotational pattern and it stays rotational, which we can see is happening. Scott here, you time your arm cocking well. You even pull your arm angle inside your elbow. That's going to support a more rotational trunk as well. And then, of course, when your front leg stabilizes and your hips open here, you have good hip to shoulder separation. But the problem for you is going to be how your trunk moves forward. And that's what I put you up with David. David's the best that I've ever measured in big league baseball for trunk distances. And, of course, in my 3X biometrics, we can see this better, but his trunk goes forward significantly into pitch release. So as we watch it here, you can see it really pushes out from where it was initially starting way behind the chin or the belt buckle. He's significantly behind the belt buckle, and we can see you here at front foot strike. You're already in front of your belt buckle. And then, like I said, he really pushes that out. So if we look at the angle here, might not be that impressive, but the fact that he started so far back and then got to 45 degrees makes it very impressive. And we can see you at pitch release, or just after pitch release. Probably be more here. If we look at your trunk angle, you're at 50. So David's 5 degrees farther than you, but he started farther back than you. So definitely more energy moving through his trunk. Even gets more front leg extension here as he drives that. You get a little front leg extension too, which isn't bad, but that's a little bit easier when you don't have the kind of force production hitting your front leg like David does. So how could you max out your delivery? You need to then learn, and with this approach, extension of the back leg, driving the back leg into front foot strike. That will generate more forces going forward. Then at front foot strike, you need to, that will help also. Your hip should be lower. That'll push your front leg out in a more linear position, which will then support more trunk going forward as you also then support it with more front leg extension. So basically, you need to learn a more dynamic lower half when it comes to generating power and force production, and a 3X approach would definitely do that for you. If you're going to stay with this more rotational delivery, you're just going to have to increase your speeds all the way up the kinetic chain significantly to be able to throw in high velocity category, and at the same time too, it's going to put more torque on your arm. Most of the guys that I've found that are very rotational, become very rotational, also have a lot more arm problems. So I believe it does lead you into more torques in the arm. Also, if we look at the ASMI's case study, actually on extreme long toss, it showed the farther we threw, the more rotational we became and the more torques were added to the arm. So there's also an indication of that in that case study. But the point is coming into this 3X approach would be very significant in you increasing velocity, because you would implement a more powerful lower half, and that would drive more trunk dynamics and more ball speed. But at the same time too, if you look at the size of David, when he leaves off season, he's 6'3". He's also 225 pounds when he leaves. So you're going to have to develop the lean muscle mass to support that kind of power. But 3X programs will give you all that as you train through it. So I hope this helps. Basically, you taking your rotational delivery into a more 3X delivery would be significant in you and going up 10, maybe even 15 miles an hour. Depending on how well you can do it and how much power you can put in your body.